box. Well, it is a Pandora's box in a way. Yeah, sure. Because basically, if you go, as my books show, if you go as deep as I went in writing those 2 books, and you could certainly go deeper, it basically shows that, the world is basically run by a meta cartel.
The files have detonated careers. Many believe the saga surrounding Jeffrey Epstein had become a closed archive of old crimes and heavily redacted rumors. That illusion shattered when the latest release ripped open the sense of distance and dragged familiar faces back into the spotlight. What has surfaced spreads rapidly. A revived claim that Ghislaine Maxwell once attempted to recruit a teenage Paris Hilton for Epstein. Hilton sharply dismissed the allegation, stating that she is simply a good clickbait name. Meanwhile, a fresh wave of document releases continues to raise more questions than answers. A photograph dated September 18, 2000, shows Hilton alongside Maxwell and Donald Trump at the On and John fashion show in New York City. In 2008, Epstein secured a plea deal and served 13 months under a controversial work release arrangement. By 2025, lawmakers were fighting over releasing additional files, while officials insisted that a promised client list did not exist. Millions of pages were posted online, only to be halted for further review. If there is nothing left to hide, why does each release arrive fragmented and delayed? This is not simply a scandal resurfacing, it is a control system beginning to crack, and the next names may not surface quietly.
The Justice Department has finally released some of the highly anticipated Epstein files. More than 300,000 pages of documents related to the late convicted offender were made public today. They include photos, flight logs, grand jury testimony, and a lot of heavy redactions.
The fracture deepens when examining how the release unfolded. The Department of Justice announced it would publish more than 3 million pages, 2,000 videos, and 180,000 images connected to the investigation. However, disclosures were quickly paused while remaining materials underwent review. Lawmakers passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act in November 2025. The following month, a batch of files was released, only for officials to announce they needed additional time to examine remaining documents. Earlier that year, the Attorney General suggested during a television appearance that a client list existed. Yet by July 7, the department stated Epstein never maintained such a list and confirmed no further files would be released. The reversal shocked members of Congress, while influential figures quietly contacted legal teams. The pattern appeared consistent: promise, partial release, halt, then denial. The procedures followed legal protocol, but the reputational impact was severe. Each time disclosures stopped, public suspicion intensified. Within that uncertainty, specific moments gained renewed attention. The 2020 documentary Surviving Jeffrey Epstein resurfaced, reigniting controversy. Composer Christopher Mason described a party scene in which Maxwell allegedly searched for younger guests and focused on Hilton, describing her as perfect for Epstein. Hilton, now 44, later addressed the claim in an interview, stating she did not recall meeting Maxwell and emphasizing that she is often used as a media headline. Despite her denial, the previously mentioned photograph from September 18, 2000, remains archived evidence of their shared presence at the same event alongside Trump. To some observers, the image reflects the glittering yet careless social atmosphere of the early 2000s. To others, it represents access to elite circles. The recruitment allegation remains unverified, yet the documented proximity continues to fuel speculation.
Some breaking news right now. Disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein has taken his own life while he was behind bars here in New York City. Epstein was facing trafficking charges and
For those who believe the scandal belongs entirely to the past, historical timelines complicate that view. In 2008, Epstein pleaded guilty to state charges involving solicitation connected to a minor and served 13 months in custody, largely under a work release program that allowed him to leave jail during the day. This arrangement is thoroughly documented and widely criticized. 1 year later, one of Epstein's accusers filed a lawsuit alleging she had been trafficked to royalty, politicians, academics, and businessmen. Although no individuals were named, the categories were unmistakable. On July 6, 2019, federal prosecutors in New York arrested Epstein on trafficking charges linked to conduct between 2002 and 2005. On August 10, 2019, he was found unresponsive in his Manhattan jail cell in what authorities ruled a self-inflicted death. The case against him was dismissed 3 weeks later. While those dates remain fixed, surrounding relationships, emails, and photographs continue to evolve in public perception. The document releases in late 2025, did not present a single explosive revelation. Instead, they resembled a directory of social and professional associations. Reports noted that Prince Andrew appeared hundreds of times in private correspondence, including references to invitations to dine at Buckingham Palace. The same files described photographs allegedly showing him reclining across the legs of multiple women, with Maxwell nearby. Additional images reportedly showed Bill Clinton relaxing in a hot tub alongside Maxwell, and entertainers including Michael Jackson and Mick Jagger. Meanwhile, comedian Chris Tucker appeared in flight logs and photographs taken on airport runways near Maxwell. None of these appearances were accompanied by criminal charges. Instead, they highlighted gaps in context. Industry insiders acknowledged that public perception alone created significant reputational damage, regardless of legal findings. Public relations teams issued statements emphasizing limited contact, group settings, or humanitarian travel. The more uniform those responses became, the more coordinated they appeared to the public. Meanwhile, document releases continued listing prominent names without providing the full explanations many observers expected.
As we've seen dozens of new photos we haven't seen before of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell with very high-profile people, celebrities, people like Mick Jagger and Michael Jackson, like you showed, also like British royalty and actors. All of that we sort of knew was happening. I'm going to highlight specifically two for the public interest, and that is President Clinton and President.
Then the emails surfaced, and their tone itself became evidence. In exchanges from 2012 and 2013, Elon Musk appears discussing logistics related to visiting Epstein's private Caribbean property. According to documents, he asked which night would host the wildest party. Musk later publicly stated in 2025 that he declined invitations and never attended any gatherings there. Meanwhile, Richard Branson, in a 2013 message, invited Epstein to his own island and jokingly referenced bringing a harem. In separate correspondence, Steve Tisch allegedly asked whether a woman was a pro or civilian, later questioning whether she was a working girl, to which Epstein reportedly responded, "Never." The language throughout these emails appears casual, transactional, and unguarded. Representatives for those mentioned emphasized limited interaction, business settings, and regret over any association. However, the timestamped messages reveal continued communication after Epstein's 2008 conviction. They show dinner plans, introductions, and logistical conversations, suggesting that while Epstein was publicly viewed as disgraced, many individuals continued engaging with him. The political dimension soon intensified. On July 15, 2025, Representatives Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie introduced the Epstein Files Transparency Act. By November 18, Congress passed the bill, and it was signed into law the following day. Just 2 days before the vote, Donald Trump urged House Republicans to support the legislation while dismissing the controversy as a political hoax and encouraging the country to move forward. However, within weeks of partial document releases, the Department of Justice again paused disclosures, citing the need for further review. On November 12, a House committee released email correspondence between Epstein and several public figures, including Prince Andrew and Steve Bannon. In one 2019 email sent to a journalist, Epstein claimed that Trump knew about the girls, though he offered no elaboration. The statement spread rapidly across media and political circles. The FBI reported receiving hundreds of public tips involving prominent individuals, many of which were ultimately deemed not credible. Ironically, a spreadsheet summarizing these calls was included in the document release itself. Officially, investigators stated there was no master-client list. Unofficially, suspicion grew that the most significant information might never reach public databases.
The news is breaking right now from the New York Times on Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. They think they've got him this time. They've really got him this time. Here are some highlights. Hold on a second. My team's sending me the name of the article. It's Don's Best Friend: How Epstein and Trump Bonded Over the Pursuit of Women. And left-wing X is going nuts over what's in this.
The narrative shifts again, largely because ambiguity fuels mythology. A scanned financial document circulated online showing what appeared to be a bank transfer line labeled BAL.name, beside Wovia Bank, and an account titled One Clear Lake Center LLC. Analysts suggested the label might simply be a corrupted version of bank name. Yet the image spread far faster than any clarification. The same document release referenced 3 pieces of kiswa, the sacred black cloth covering the Kaaba in Mecca, reportedly shipped to Epstein in 2017. Some observers dismissed the reference as a clerical anomaly. Others layered symbolic interpretations onto existing conspiracy theories, suggesting cult-like behavior linked to Epstein's Palm Beach operations. Cultural reactions soon amplified the speculation. At the 2026 Grammy Awards, Trevor Noah joked about Nicki Minaj allegedly visiting the White House with Trump. Hours later, Minaj posted cryptic comments referencing a supposed secret cult involving unnamed artists. She offered no specifics, but online communities filled in the blanks themselves. Meanwhile, public pressure intensified as Kevin Spacey publicly demanded full disclosure of all Epstein-related materials, portraying himself as having nothing to hide. Ironically, newly surfaced images circulated showing Spacey alongside Ghislaine Maxwell and Bill Clinton, fueling renewed scrutiny. Across industries, executives who previously avoided the subject suddenly began calling for transparency, believing widespread chaos could dilute individual reputational risk. Crisis management teams formed rapidly in Los Angeles and New York. Invitations to elite events quietly disappeared, and corporate boards requested private briefings. This was not legal panic, it was brand survival. Comedian Cat Williams, who had long criticized Hollywood's power structures, resurfaced in public discussions. His repeated claims that elite circles protect their own until exposure becomes unavoidable suddenly felt, to some observers, less like speculation and more like cultural commentary.
This just broke moments ago. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have released photos from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. We're getting dribs and drabs of this, and we had some pictures already, and here's some. There are some that show Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Steve Bannon, Bill Gates, and others. None of the released images depicts any misconduct. None is believed to depict underage girls. It was not immediately clear when or where they were.
International reactions reinforced this pattern of institutional protection. Diplomatic figures lost advisory roles within days of their correspondence becoming public. Former ambassadors issued statements of regret, while royal households quietly restructured titles and public duties instead of directly confronting controversy. The strategy remained consistent: isolate individuals while protecting institutions. In Washington, political allies dismissed allegations as distractions, while critics demanded deeper investigations. The FBI's public tip spreadsheet again highlighted a major shift: reputational consequences were occurring faster than judicial outcomes. Proximity alone began carrying significant social and political weight. Within corporate leadership circles, attention shifted toward narrative control. The central question was no longer whether Epstein-related files existed, but rather who controlled their interpretation. That battle intensified when Bill Gates became linked to draft messages reportedly stored within Epstein's email archives. The drafts referenced marital tensions and business disagreements, claims Gates representatives strongly dismissed as absurd. Nevertheless, the existence of those drafts, regardless of their authenticity, prolonged public scrutiny. Gates' high-profile divorce settlement had already reshaped public perception. Now, fragments of archived correspondence introduced additional uncertainty. Experts in corporate governance emphasize that emails function as permanent records, not casual communication. Even incomplete or questionable drafts can shift public leverage and influence corporate reputation. This growing awareness fueled a broader concern among business and political elites that Epstein's relationships may have been more extensive and strategically maintained than previously acknowledged.
Her, doesn't it? She probably wants to get out early. So I think that we have more digging to do. I think the DOJ transparency effort here is the right thing, but the reason it's on a Friday, Will, is I think there are no smoking guns. There's other places we have to look.
Well, Buck, you appropriately.
Meanwhile, the release process itself becomes a central character in the unfolding story. Lawmakers publicly champion transparency, while privately calculating political consequences. The White House faces pressure from opposing factions demanding continued disclosures. When one document batch briefly included explicit material before being removed, survivors reacted with outrage, reminding the public that these files represent records of exploitation, not celebrity gossip. Officials emphasize redactions and privacy protections. Skeptics, however, interpret those same redactions as concealment. The paradox grows stronger. The more authorities attempt to clarify, the less the public seems to trust those explanations. Conspiracy communities expand, using each blacked-out section as supposed proof of deeper corruption. In this atmosphere, even routine procedural delays take on symbolic meaning. Every pause suggests potential leverage. Every review period appears to some observers like negotiation. The files evolve into more than evidence. They become currency in a struggle for narrative control. Cultural figures quickly sense the rising pressure and respond accordingly. A cryptic accusation posted by Nicki Minaj about an alleged hidden cult spreads widely, despite containing no specific names. Within hours, speculation focuses on familiar high-profile figures. Beyoncé and Jay-Z begin trending across social media. Past interviews are re-examined, and performance footage is reinterpreted through new speculative lenses. Similarly, Naomi Campbell faces renewed scrutiny regarding past travel connections, despite her prior public condemnation of Epstein's actions. Denials and distancing statements no longer quiet suspicion. In many cases, they intensify it. Social media compresses complex realities into binary judgments. Association quickly transforms into insinuation, and insinuation often evolves into accepted belief. Within this environment, the theory that elite circles operate through mutual silence gains traction. Long-standing claims by Cat Williams, suggesting insiders know more than they publicly admit, begin resurfacing in comment sections and televised panel discussions. Importantly, the documents themselves do not issue direct accusations. The cultural reaction surrounding them often does.
I think these things like Epstein, and there's probably a bunch of other similar operations that are being run, they provide you with like a really good time, or maybe you're a high profile, extremely wealthy individual, and it's hard for you to get hosed. And some guy tells you, hey, we've got everything covered. You know, you come to my island, nothing, you know, what happens on the island stays on the island.
At a deeper level, the recurring pattern centers on access and influence. Epstein's power extended beyond wealth. It depended heavily on who accepted his invitations, entered his private spaces, and maintained communication with him. Access provided opportunity, introductions, partnerships, funding channels, and enhanced visibility. Refusing those invitations could risk professional or social isolation. This dynamic helps explain why many relationships persisted, even after Epstein's reputation suffered public damage. It suggests not merely isolated moral failures, but a broader structural vulnerability within elite social networks. The release files reveal routine contact, casual communication, and comfortable familiarity. They depict a professional class that appeared confident the network would remain insulated from scrutiny. That insulation has now begun to fracture under intense public examination. Corporate contracts weaken. Sponsors reevaluate partnerships. Executive boards debate reputational risk. None of these consequences represent legal verdicts, yet their financial implications are undeniable. Investors dislike uncertainty, and uncertainty now surrounds every name appearing in those records. Government institutions attempt to stabilize public perception. Officials repeatedly emphasize that appearing in the files does not imply criminal behavior. The FBI highlights that many tip-line reports lacked credibility. However, in a culture shaped by prolonged skepticism, official caution often sounds like carefully crafted legal language rather than reassurance. Meanwhile, survivors and advocacy groups compile their own unofficial records, unwilling to rely solely on government disclosures. This parallel documentation reflects a deeper erosion of public trust. When trust deteriorates, speculation thrives. Every withheld page becomes symbolic. Every unexplained relationship becomes a potential narrative thread. Gradually, the scandal expands beyond a criminal investigation. It transforms into a broader cultural referendum on elite power structures. It raises a critical question. Do influence networks function through explicit conspiracies, or through normalized silence and shared benefit? The tension now intensifies. More documents may be released, or more delays may occur. Additional names could emerge, or the flow of information might tighten further. Regardless, reputational consequences are already unfolding, suggesting this is not a contained controversy, but an ongoing recalibration of influence and status. If mere association can destabilize careers and partnerships, what might happen if deeper connections surface? If insiders have quietly hinted at protective elite cultures for years, were those warnings simply ignored until documentation forced attention? Are these releases genuine transparency, or carefully controlled exposure? And when the next wave of disclosures arrives, who will stand exposed, and who will remain shielded? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments. Choose your interpretation. The story continues to evolve, and the pressure is only increasing.